What is the focus of the following parabola? Now we know this is a parabola because there's an x and a y squared, basically one piece squared. In order to find the focus, you first need to get the non-squared piece by itself. So basically I could get this x by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 24. When I do that, I now have, that cancels when I divide by negative 24, and I now have the x by itself, and I'll put the x to the left side, just easier to see. So cancel this, x is by itself, equals 2 divided by negative 24 looks like it's going to be negative 112, and that's y squared. Now that is the standard form of a parabola. Okay, from there I want to find out the focus. So the first step is, what direction is this going to open? Since it's x equals, we know it's going to be along the x-axis. Since the a value is negative, we know it's going to be on the negative side of the x-axis, so we know it's going to be opening like this. And thus the focus is going to be somewhere inside. So I got to find out how far that focus is from this vertex. So that's C. How do we find C? Well, C is equal to 1 over 4 times A. And in this particular problem, what is A? Well, this is going to be 1 over 4 times A. What's A? Well, this is your A right here, the negative 112. So, if I want to find A, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get, that's going to be 1 over, and 4 times negative 1 divided by 12, looks like it's going to be negative 4/12, which that looks like it's going to be 1. I'm going to change it to this kind of divide sign. Instead of this divide, I'll make that divide sign. And this looks like it's going to be negative 1/3, which it now looks like this actually is going to be C equals negative 3. So if C is negative 3, that means this is 3 over negative. So if it's 3 this way, that means as a coordinate, the coordinate for the focus is going to be negative 3, 0, because we went 3 this way, because the vertex is at, if you think about it, the vertex is at 0, 0, and it's going to go negative 3 to the left. So this would be the coordinate for the focus. Now, for number 2, I want the radius of a circle. So the radius of a circle is just simply this. That's r squared. Now if I want r, I square root both sides. When I square root it, I get r equals plus or minus 4. Now do I need the minus? Not really. So the radius is just going to be 4. Oh, that's dumb. The square root of 4 is 2. I made a mistake. Okay, the square root of 4 is 2, so plus or minus 2, so your radius is just 2. Okay, so this is the radius is 2. Here the focus was negative 3, 0, because it opened to the left and went negative 3 spaces over. By the way, the directrix would be positive 3 this way. Don't worry about that. I want the vertices of the ellipse. First thing you need to do to find the vertices of an ellipse is divide both sides, or everything, by the 40, because you need it to be equaling 0. So we have x squared, we have y squared, we have equals 1. 4 and 40, when you reduce that, you get 1 over, 4 goes into 40 10 times. 5 goes into 40 8 times. So 5 over 40 becomes 1 over 8. The 1 doesn't have to be on top, so we're good. I want my vertices. Well, my vertices is a squared. And for an ellipse, the vertices are your bigger denominator, so it's bigger is the 10. So if I want to solve that, well, to solve that, use the square root both sides. So a equals plus or minus the square root of 10. Now the next question is, I want it as a coordinate. So if I want this as a coordinate, well, it came from underneath the 10. So what that means is my a value goes to my x value. Because the square root of 10 came from the x, so I put my square root of 10 in the x spot. Now, if the square root of 10 came from under the y, you put it in the y spot and 0 in the other place. So, anywho, that would be your vertices. Your co-vertices would be 0 plus or minus square root 8. 0 plus or minus square root 8, those would be your co-vertices. I can't spell very good. It got all messy. And these are your vertices. Okay. Now, for number 4, I want the asymptotes of your hyperbola. First thing you need to do is divide everything by 30. Just like you did over here. You've got to make this equation equal to 1. So we have y squared minus x squared equals 1. And 15 divided by 30 looks like a 2. 6 divided by 30, or 6 into 30, when you reduce that, looks like it's going to, 6 goes into 35 times. And if I want my asymptotes, what you got to realize for asymptotes is you got to realize if I was to make this box, to make this graph, if I make this box, the square root of 5 with the y value, so I'm going to go up the square root of 5, however far as square root of 5, it's like 4 point something. So you can go up 4 point something. The square root of 2 is like 1 point something. So you're going to make this box here. Okay? And your asymptotes go through that box. Okay, I want the equation of these asymptotes. And so the question is, if I want to get the equation for the asymptotes, don't you need the slope here? So I want the slope. So for this particular line, let's make it bigger. I want to find out that slope. This right here, this is another example of it. I want to find the slope of this line. Well, what would my rise? Well, my rise, wasn't that square root 5? And my run, isn't that square root 2? Remember, you square root both of these? This is your rise, so your y value. Your x values are square root 2. So the slope of that line, looks like it's going to be y equals plus or minus, because there's a positive slope and a negative slope line. And it looks like we have this, the rise, which is square root of 5, over the run, which is square root of 2, x. And that would be the equation of the asymptote. It's rise over run. Now, we're not supposed to have a square root on the bottom, so the easiest way to rewrite this would be plus or minus the whole thing square root, like that. Because when you have square roots on both, you can separate it into one square root. And that would be your slope. That would be a technical way of writing the equation of your asymptote. You could also leave it like this and multiply top and bottom by square root 2 and end up with one more method. If you multiply top and bottom by square root 2, you could also get plus or minus, and that would be square root of 10 over 2. And the way I did that is I multiplied top and bottom by square root 2 to get the square root of the bottom. This is actually more common because people don't like to usually simplify it down. Anywho, again, you just got to get the rise and run for this line. I kind of enlarged it right here. And again, the reason for plus or minus is you have this negative slope, which would be down negative square root 5 over square root 2 to get that. So you got asymptotes, you got vertices or covertices, depending. You got radiuses, radii, and then you have foci of parabolas. So make sure you can do all three of those.